Welcome to The Fall to Grace. This is a podcast where we hope to bring a grounded, practical approach to spirituality and mystic wisdom. In today's episode, we're going to talk about perfectionism, how it shows up, and what you can do about it. So thank you so much for being here. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at The Fall to Grace. Feel free to send in any questions. And if you wouldn't mind rating and reviewing wherever you're listening, we would greatly appreciate it. We put out episodes every 2 weeks, and we're so happy to have you here. Let's get into it.
Okay, go ahead. Let's start.
Okay. Well, hi, Connor.
Hi, Cyan.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Today, we wanted to talk about perfectionism and how it's really just a manifestation of fear and how one might be able to kick that habit of being perfectionistic
by making the worst podcast you've ever heard.
With zero fear of how it will be received.
Yeah. Great. Well, tell me about it. Why are you even thinking about this?
Well, I'll tell you, I think about it all the time because if I'm being honest, I'm a perfectionist.
Nice. What does that mean to you?
You're not surprised by my admission?
No.
Okay.
But I am too a little bit. I mean, I have it in me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it depends on what I'm doing and where, but
right.
I certainly have it.
Many people do. But I've been thinking about it in so many ways. I think let's start out with this way, though. I've been really trying to sharpen the blade in so many ways, and it's the new year, so maybe we all are just trying to get things in order, and tighten up a little bit over here, like tighten up with my practices. And as I'm tightening, I'm really being hard on, the past versions of myself where more weakness was permissible, or I permitted more weakness. And it's very frustrating to me to look back on those old versions of myself and realize just how weak I was. I find it kind of humiliating to think back on that. And
Yeah.
when I shared that earlier, you had some good perspective on that specifically. So why don't you tell?
Well, I mean, I think being ashamed or feeling humiliated by our past is taking it a step too far. But, if there's not a sense of like embarrassment of where you were a year ago or a month ago or anything, I mean, how do you know you're progressing? There's so much of this that we treat as permanent, or we look back at these images and we fixate on what we did in that one instance, or we fixate on what we did this time in 2016. That's the new hype on the internet. It's 2016. And we look back at that with such disgust. But in that moment, it wasn't disgusting, and it doesn't have to be now, but it does symbolize our growth and that we should keep growing. And in certain ways, if we're not embarrassed of who we were a year ago, then we're not growing in the way that we need to be. There's certain caveats to that, certainly, but the better part of this is trying to understand how to be softer on ourselves and how to have more compassion for our own experience. And that's the harder part of all of this, is being embarrassed about where I'm not, or being embarrassed about where I was. Like, these are just imagination running wild in my mind if I'm so ashamed of who I was and I'm thinking about, and it's mostly how other people thought of me in that moment that I'm afraid of. It's like, oh, they must have thought I was so dumb. Like, they must have thought I was such a weak person in your case, right? And the reality of the situation is that nobody's thinking about who you were a year ago except for you. And, save for a couple instances where your mother might notice your growth or whatever it is, but you're living in an imaginary world, and you're suffering through an imaginary world where if it's I wish people thought better of me, or I'm so afraid of how they thought of me. Like, all of these are just imaginations, and you're just making assumptions about how other people thought in certain instances. And none of it's real, but it feels so real.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess this brings us to a good point. There's a sociological concept. I think, it was Cooley who came up with this idea, and it's the looking glass self, which is basically like we act according to how we assume people are perceiving us. So it's not necessarily like based on reality. We act based on how we perceive reality, how we perceive other people perceiving us. That's how we act in this world. And I think that that's like a huge part of spiritual life for me is kind of getting over that. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think this is the crux of spirituality is trying to see the truth. And what's so difficult about being a human being with higher intelligences is that we have this ability to make assumptions. And we have this ability to live in this imaginary world where if I do this, that person's going to be mad. And if I don't do well enough at this, then they're going to think less of me. And so we're suffering from a higher cognition, and this cognition masquerades itself as protecting ourselves. Like if I'm worried about all of these things, then I can create the perfect action with the perfect outcome. And most of that is fantasy. And spiritual life and spiritual practice is about taking your newly sharpened knife to that, to
Mhm.
understand what is actually true in any given situation. And so, yes, the spiritual journey is about cutting off that ego that judges. And when we cut out the ego, we kind of naturally fall into more of a place of compassion. Compassion arises where ego ends. And when we have the compassion of just saying, like, this is how things are now, and we understand that everything is impermanent and constantly changing, but our mind will constantly come back and tell us that they are true, because that's how it protects us. It says that thing's good for you, that thing's bad for you. And so we're fighting we're fighting our survival instinct in many ways as we embark on this too. And it's really hard. And perfectionism is just kind of one huge, like, perfect microcosm of this, because it shows us exactly how protective our ego can be. Because when we are so hyper fixated on making things as perfect as possible and doing exactly the right thing, like, it gives us, our mind gives us this idea that these things can be, if they're thought about enough, that I can get exactly what I need, or I can
Mhm.
get exactly what I want. And that's also not true. Like, it convinces us that the more we worry about situations, the better the situation will be. When in reality, if we actually look at the reality of that situation, is that the worry is causing you all sorts of suffering. And you're actually just suffering through that experience more than anything. You've been so fixated on this outcome of this job interview that you have in a week that your whole week has been entirely ruined because you've been so worried about it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's such a notion that you'll hear very frequently on the path is that concept of suffering twice for no reason, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Suffering in your mind and then potentially suffering when the thing actually comes. But then again, it often doesn't come. So you're suffering for nothing in that case.
And
But
that's, yeah, I mean, it starts so much with this idea that everything's changing all the time and that I'm
mhm.
constantly kind of evolving, whether I want to or not. I have a certain idea of how I should be, and that's just a judgment of how I am. And so I need to get rid of that in some way, shape, or form. And for me, like, that starts with this understanding that's been given to me by a few teachers, which is that I'm not really here for the best experience possible. I'm not, I mean, and best, by best, I mean most pleasurable and most optimal, with everybody thinking that I'm great and everybody being my friend and everybody loving me. Like, I'm here for the deepest human experience. And the deepest human experience requires lesson learning, and
Mhm.
lesson learning requires mistakes. And as I lean more into this idea that not everything has to be good all the time, not everything should feel good all the time, I lean more into the conscious experiencer of this, which is the observer in many ways, which is just the thing that is watching all of this happen. And that's a far more powerful experience, and it's far freer. I'm not free when I'm constantly judging. Being hyper judgmental is like the sign of spiritual bondage, because I am taking the world and rejecting it. I'm saying this is not the way it should be. And it's such a, I mean, it's such a ridiculous thought that I would know how the world should be as an extremely limited human being with the experience I have.
Mhm. But, you know, unless we've attained enlightenment, we do have judgments of people, honestly. Like most of us do, at least, you know, and when we judge, we're planting that seed and the fruit on that tree is going to be that we're going to get judged in return, either by others or by ourselves, you know? Like that judgment, it turns back on us.
Oh, so quickly.
Yeah, we're
I
the victims of it too.
can't emphasize enough, like, how valuable this kind of understanding of people is. Like, the most judgmental person in your life is the harshest person on themselves. Like, the person who's making you have a bad time is having a really bad time.
Mhm.
And so people reveal themselves in how they treat other people, and people reveal a lot about the way they think about the world. Like the person who thinks that everything should be different is the person who dislikes themselves the most
Mm-hmm.
and wants to change the most in themselves. So almost the outward is the inward, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the mirror. And in many ways, when we're walking this back and when we are practicing at this, like this is the way to do it as well. The more kind of grace that we give the world for being the world, the more grace we have for ourselves being ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and for ourselves being human. This is something that I'm actually really trying to walk back personally. It's like I have a split negative internal monologue that comes on
Mm-hmm.
when I make a mistake,
Share.
which is just like my go-to is like I am just such a fucking idiot or I am like such a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, like my mind convinces me that I'm being funny about it, but
Mm-hmm.
just
About your judgment.
yeah, but I'm starting to realize that even those words are extremely powerful and that like that self narrative is extremely incriminating, even though it's far less severe than it used to be. Like the words still matter
Mm-hmm.
and the perception still matters. And so I'm trying to work that far more into this imperfect understanding of the world and a better imperfect understanding of myself. And again, just being like, this is who I am now. Oh, I just learned a lesson.
Yeah. I think some of this fear comes from thinking that whatever version we show up as in the world will be cemented in people's minds, you know? And that's really scary. And
It's
so,
more like that matters.
right.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
You may like, but it doesn't matter.
Mm.
It doesn't have a lasting impact on you if you don't let it. It's when our mind gets a hold of that and says, you know, Cyan's going to think I'm so stupid now.
Mm-hmm.
And I run with that. I'm punishing myself with that. I could easily have forgiveness for myself and for Cyan for being judgmental.
Right. It's a great point. Another form perfection takes for me is it historically has made me quit things a lot because it's like if I don't do it perfectly then what's the point kind of thing. And so like I'll use my physique as an example. I've gone through periods of like where I've been really 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 invested in the gym for long periods of time. And then I'll, like historically maybe start drinking heavily for a little while. And so then my body starts changing and then I just say, fuck it entirely. You know what I mean? And it's like everything goes out the window and I've had to like start over from almost from scratch, like on this health and fitness journey, like a handful of times. And it's frustrating. And then I'll get back to that point and then something will snap and then the whole thing just like crumbles. And it's so frustrating. And I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to that in other ways too, just other than the gym. But like we're so victim to our black and white thinking, It's really damaging because really the most important thing is like, as the yoga teachers out there would say, like, you have to just show up on your mat. That's really the battle. That's where the battle takes place is like, did you actually just get on your mat, so to speak? Did you just show up for yourself in some way, And like that does compound. All of our choices compound. So when you start understanding that, like perfectionism loosens its grip on your neck, but it's hard not to fall into the black and white thinking.
I mean, it's ego. It's a balance between ego and compassion, and it's not a balance. I mean, we're really trying to get rid of the ego so that compassion can live. And where compassion doesn't live, the ego thrives. The ego's a thief, like you said. I mean, it will keep you from doing the thing that you want to do the most in the world because you're not good at it or you're not perfect at it. And in that way, you're depriving yourself entirely of the thing you love the most.
Right.
And this happens to so many of us so early on is that like we can love music, but we'll never practice it because we've tried it a few times and we hit the wrong notes every time. And our ego was just like, you're no good at this, put it down and never pick it up again. And the compassionate side of ourself would say, that's okay. Like you are in the process of like the first step to being good at something is being bad at it. And there's so much beauty in that journey of getting good at something. Like for those of anybody who has perfected a craft or worked very diligently at it. Yeah, it's kung fu. The idea of kung fu is not a martial art. It's the process of perfecting something over time and doing it over and over and over again. There's such a deeper appreciation for the process there. And we don't have a lot of appreciation for the process. We have a lot of appreciation for the outcome.
Ooh, that is so true. That is actually how I would sum up the biggest lesson I've learned from spirituality, spiritual life is that. And that's why I always use that example of sharpening the blade, because it's like literally what I get out of spirituality is just sharpening that blade against the whetstone of practice of all kinds. Every day is just one more pass, one more pass, one more pass, one more pass against the whetstone. You know what I mean? And like the fun of it, the joy of it, like the fullness, the richness of the experience is in the sharpening, you know? I may never get the sharpest blade, but it's like I'm totally falling in love with the sharpening process. And that's like exactly kung fu. And that's what I've actually gotten so much better and like fallen in love with the gym in a different way because it feels like that now to me. And so there's that. Like it's everything. I mean, even my apartment has gotten cleaner since spiritual life because now I love sweeping the floors every day. It's different. Things are different when you see it like that. You know what I mean? You do your laundry, but you do your laundry like a Zen Buddhist.
I don't do my laundry like a Zen Buddhist. Do you do your laundry like a Zen Buddhist? That's a totally different
Wait,
point.
what do you mean? Do you do it angrily? I don't mean I do it in a river.
I do it begrudgingly. Yeah.
Yeah, I like doing my laundry now.
Good. That was good. No, it's a great expression of the predicament. Our soul, in many ways, longs for that. It longs for this pure devotion that is dedicated and improving all the time and getting better. Our mind co-opts that feeling and it says, you want to feel better. You want to do better. And it can see what better looks like. And it can see examples of that. And it quickly turns into judgment because it says, you're not there and you never will be. So why are you doing this? Do something you're better at. And it robs us of the devotion and the dedication. And when we, and this is why we almost have to stop thinking, right? This is why we want to get rid of the ego so desperately, is because when you actually just start doing and just taking action, small actions, showing up on the mat, cleaning your house, whatever it is, just little acts, we start to feel this fulfillment. And it's not something that your mind can necessarily explain. Right? I feel good because I accomplished something. I crossed something off my list. Like whatever it is, like there's an ineffability about that sensation that is just relief. It feels more like relief than it does pleasure.
Yeah.
And then it's beautiful. It feels more like I'm looking at a piece of art.
One more brushstroke.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever it is. I mean, and you start to see that all of this is a tapestry, that this happens with 1,000 runs over the whetstone, right? That it didn't happen just because I wanted the knife to be sharper. And I know what a sharp knife looks like, and I know what this knife looks like, and it looks dull.
Yeah, turn off your Pinterest, you guys. It's not what we're talking about. Like, you know.
Well, yeah, but we live in the fantasy world to where we don't do anything because we're crippled by perception versus reality. And so we have to inject compassion into this. And that, I mean, that's so hard to do because compassion is where the ego ends. And all of that has to start by us kind of trying to get rid of our ego. If we can set that intention very deliberately, like I just want to be less judgmental. And this is why prayer is so powerful to me, because I can't control my mind. I know that. I've sat in enough meditation to know that my thoughts just come. They're not thoughts that I'm having. They're thoughts that come to me and move through me. And I get really frustrated that I can't just turn it on and off. Like it is happening regardless of what I'm doing. But I've found that the power of prayer is in controlling the mind, is in setting this intention and saying, God, please help me be more compassionate. God, please help me to be less judgmental. And I find myself being less judgmental and more compassionate down the way. I think this is where grace is. Grace lies in our minds. We want it to lie in the financial windfall that we get. Like, just give me enough money to not have to work, please. Right? And then a miracle happens and we go, this is grace. This is God. God does exist. He cured this kid or whatever it is. But no, like the daily grace that we can tap into is by setting these intentions about how we want to think and how we want to treat others. And this is my pitch for everybody listening about prayer, is stop directing your prayer towards things. Stop saying, bring me the boyfriend or the girlfriend. Stop saying, bring me the job. Stop saying, change my life all the time. Prayer should be about changing me. And so start praying for less judgment. Start praying for more compassion. And those are energies. Those are things we can channel. And those are things that can be injected into us. And this is what the divine does for me, is it takes those energies and it puts them in me
Totally. A while back, I asked for more, like an increase of discipline. And what I've gotten is falling in love with the game itself, for sure.
What do you mean by that?
Just falling in love with the process of painting, I guess, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of chasing the outcome, you just start painting and then you get lost in the process of painting and you don't even really care what it looks like at the end, I think.
I certainly think so. Um, and I think that this is what great artists know, is that it's not about, bad art and bad music and bad all this stuff. It's far more concerned with what the audience thinks about it, right?
Mhm.
I am taking a fixed product of audience enjoyment and I'm working my way towards that. But the best art ever created in the world has never been concerned with the audience. It is
Totally.
only concerned with the most authentic form of
Mhm.
expression that an artist can make.
Mhm.
And so the best artists don't care what other people think, and the best people don't care what other people think. They are fixated on perfection of the craft, right? And that's very different than the perfectionism that we have and that we were
Mhm.
talking about. That's all my perfectionism as it manifests is very relational to what you think of me and what others think of me. And I want to perfect my image in your eyes. Perfection as dedication and as devotion is more about falling in love with it and just falling in love with little improvements and falling in love with little progress and falling in love with the beautiful ways that that shows up in my life. And the best works of art are never finished.
Mhm.
And they're never for me.
Mm.
They were for them. And I'm suddenly seeing myself in it.
They had to make it too.
Yeah.
It like sprung from their heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They had to get it on the canvas or make the movie or do whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like when you start to fall in love too. It's like, I have to do the puja. And then I do everything as puja then. It just expands, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it expands in ways that you won't understand or necessarily be cognizant of. These changes are small and incremental. The mind convinces you that it knows everything that's going on all the time, especially in your life. But so many of these changes are tiny. Like you all of a sudden have a habit for doing the dishes
Mhm.
because you've done it a few times and you've expressed some willingness to do these things,
Mhm.
like you were talking about. Like this is about a willingness to be imperfect in many ways. And I don't know. For me, it starts so much with levity. Like the experience I have is not, and whether I'm having a pleasant one or an unpleasant experience in my life is very little about what's happening in
Mhm.
my life. Everything can be going extremely well and I can just judge the shit out of my life. I mean, I can have a good job and have a good relationship and have good friendships and all these things. And, if I'm taking it too seriously, what happens is I start to judge all those things and I start to say they're not enough and I need a better job and I need a different girlfriend and I need different friends. And when I do that, it's because I'm treating everything with severity. I'm saying like this matters, right? Like it matters what my friends are like and it matters what my job is like and it matters what my girlfriend's like. And it really doesn't. I mean, so much when I'm not taking life seriously, it's like, wow, all these people are all sorts of fucked up and this job's all sorts of fucked up and that girl's all sorts of fucked up, but that's all okay, right? There's so much more space for it
Mhm.
when I'm taking things a little bit more lightly.
Why don't you
expressing
read the
myself.
Huxley quote?
I will read the Huxley quote. So Aldous Huxley said this, and he's speaking more towards how seriously we take things versus how not seriously things are, and how that's more of a barometer of whether we're going to have a good experience or a bad experience in this world is definitely how seriously we take things. And he said, "It's dark because you are trying too hard. Lightly, child, lightly. Learn to do everything lightly. Yes, feel lightly even though you're feeling deeply. Just lightly let things happen and lightly cope with them. So throw away your baggage and go forward. There are quicksands all about you, sucking at your feet, trying to suck you down into fear and self-pity and despair. That's why you must walk so lightly. There's so many signals in the world that tell us that this is serious, that if you don't get this job, you're never going to be enough. If you trip up the stairs, that person is going to think you're a clumsy idiot forever, right? That's all in how seriously I treat those experiences. It's just a hard experience when we think everything matters so deeply. And spirituality teaches us that it doesn't, that we're kind of trapped in these bodies for the short amount of time. And we have this choice to either enjoy the experience and experience it deeply, or we have the choice to suffer through this experience. And when we're suffering, it's because internalize that it's difficult and that everything matters and it's heavy and it's painful to walk through the world that way. Lightly, child, lightly. It's my favorite quote. That's my favorite quote in the world. And it's like written on top of my bathroom mirror is lightly, child, lightly. Because I have to be reminded always
Hmm.
that this matters less than I thought it did. And that temporary pain is okay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, my mind wants me to think that if I have a bad experience, that it's going to be forever and that I'm going to feel bad forever. But what my true experience has shown me is that every bout of depression has left me as long as I've let it go. Every deep feeling I've ever had has passed in some way, shape, or form. And that I can kind of sit back and watch that all happen if I want to. And when I sit back and watch it all happen, it becomes a beautiful play, full of pain and full of joy. And it's a far more complex and beautiful tapestry than it is just a pleasant tapestry or an unpleasant one for that matter.
Definitely. We're all gonna die one day.
Yeah.
It's like, it's in a way, it's defying death, I think, perfectionism. You know, it's like defying the fact that we're gonna die. This is all temporary. And I wonder if that's part of it, you know, that like if we can get it just so, we'll be cemented in people's minds. We'll be cemented somehow the way we want to be in this world, you know? It's just like, you know, at the end of a love story, like a movie, when the girl and the guy get together and you're so excited for them and stuff. Don't you think when you watch those movies, like, oh, I wonder if they're going to break up? I always think that after like a love story movie. I wonder if they're going to break up. But the movie like displays it as if that's it. But that's just not how life is. You know, life keeps moving after the girl and the guy get together, and then things go sour and get weird, and life keeps going, and like, who knows, you know? And then, you know, maybe the guy later on gets into crypto or something. Like, you just don't know.
Well, our mind's always fixated on a fairy tale ending because that represents the end of our suffering. Once it's all in place and I have everything I wanted,
Yeah.
then I will just enjoy it all. And that's the misnomer that we have to fight against. We have to recognize that as the fundamental untruth.
Yeah.
Is that there's a finish line that I can cross and coast. There's no finish line. It's about the journey, not about the destination, which is such. My dad said that to me one time when I was a kid, and I've just never been madder at anybody for saying anything to me. We were on a boat in Venice going to the wrong place, and I was telling him we were going to the wrong place, and he just kept telling me it's about the journey, not about the destination. And we reached one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen and doing it. And it was the most frustrated I've ever been as a child, was understanding that my dad was right in that moment.
It's true. It's like when you graduated high school and you thought you were going to have this college experience and that things were going to be so different. And in a way they were, but it was also super sucky in its own way. Like I wasn't thrilled in college, and I had a major bout of depression in college. And I thought it was going to be better when I reached actual adulthood, whatever that means. And it wasn't better. It was different. Like I found peace. I've found peace through going through the hardships and forcing myself to figure peace out. But there's just not one, like, you don't just stumble upon happiness, you know?
Well, there's no silver bullet
Yeah.
solution. I mean, it's tough. I mean, the world is constantly telling you that there is. And that's what's really hard, is that if you're engaged and on top of the world, like if you're not in the sense of enjoying life, but believing everything that's told to you, then you're going to have a pretty bad time, especially in this culture, which is all centered around perception versus reality and creating a different perception than what is actually happening. And it is constantly selling you ideas of, if you do this, you'll be happy. If you get a BMW, you'll be happy. If you score a perfect game in bowling, you'll be happy.
Yeah, I hate when society tells me that.
That's the illusion I'm living under constantly. So I'll be fine when I roll that 300. But it's never that way. And this is why spirituality is so much about being present and just being able to greet each new day as a new day with its whole host of experiences. When I have a perception of how things should be, I'm constantly at war with how things are. And if I'm constantly at war, I'm constantly suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about just trying not to be at war.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And being at war with the world is painful. And most of us are at war with the world all the time.
Or, yes, we are at war with the world. I also see people who move through the things that they think will make them happy really fast and then go, what's next, kind of thing.
Well, even this is all beautiful. I mean, even the suffering is terrifically beautiful if you're learning. Some of us never learn. That's my biggest fear, is that I'll go to my deathbed believing that if only this was different,
Mhm.
it all would have been good. I mean, what I've learned from my experiences in spirituality is that deep appreciation of the beauty of it all is the only way to find lasting joy. And the more I appreciate it, the more joyful I am. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if things are good or bad things are happening to me. If I'm in a state of grace, I'm in a state of appreciation for how things are, not
Totally.
for how they should be.
Yeah.
And that's entirely dependent on my mental state and in my like soul state.
Mhm. It's funny too, I actually had this moment today where I got a little nostalgic for I moved back in with my dad for, like, 6 months. I've had, like, a few bouts of major depression, like, just awful, could barely get out of bed type depression, and I was living with him briefly, like, my lease ended, and I don't even know if it was 6 months. I was so depressed, and I didn't know what I wanted to do next, and I just felt really lost at that point, but I felt very nostalgic, actually, for that brief period in time because he would always, like, make warm cookies, and we would sit on the couch and eat them together, like, almost every evening, and it's funny, I just don't that stinging, horrible pain is gone from my memory. And what's left is like a bit of nostalgia actually for that time period. Like time softens all wounds. And I think we can sort of take on that disposition and remember that, keep that in mind as we're experiencing pain, that this will be softened as well. And I think that helps you hold on to it a little more loosely too. Like next time, now I have a little bit more context. I've experienced pain many more times than I did at that point when I was younger and moved back in with my dad. But like, so it's easier for me to remember that.
I mean, this too shall pass,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's a truth that should go with you from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep,
Hmm.
is that all these things will pass, right? Like hold them lightly, let them change.
Hmm.
Um, so much of that is because you've made use of your pain, right? You've
Hmm.
learned your lessons. What I am always leaning into is that I'm learning and that I'm practicing. I'm never doing the thing. I'm practicing a job
Hmm.
when I go to my job. I'm
Totally.
practicing being in relationships. I'm not fucking up at being in a relationship. It's like, no, I'm practicing and I'm
Hmm.
learning as I go. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And now I know what I know. Some Buddhists say this, but the biggest sin is ignorance, right? Like the only sin is ignorance. If I don't know what I don't know, then I am being who I am in any given moment. There's no judgment there. The more I learn, then I have to live up to what I know spiritually to be true. And I have to employ my wisdom. I mean, that's the greatest pain I experience today, is knowing the truth and acting against it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I have so much more grace for myself when I don't know something
Hmm.
and when I've learned that lesson for the first time there, right? Like I am just new to this and I'm not going to be perfect at this.
Hmm.
And every time I can channel that, I mean, it feels like a gorilla has just stood up after sitting on my chest for a very long time. And there's freedom and there's space. It's always about creating more and more space. But when my mind is fully charged and fully weaponized, all it is just judging me for that mistake I made or that thing I did 5 years ago. This is what's true of like my alcoholism, right? Like so much of the recovery journey for anybody, especially those of you who are in recovery, is about making your suffering mean something.
Hmm.
This is the Dostoevsky quote, is my greatest sin is that I have destroyed myself for nothing, right? It's not a sin to destroy yourself
Yeah.
so long as it means something.
Totally.
If you have these horrible, horrible memories from your addiction and you have this horrible, I mean, ostensibly, I was a terrible, terrible person to be around during that time, but I feel no remorse for that now because I've turned that into something. I've made
Yeah.
use of all that lesson, and now it lives in a more prestigious place in my mind. I mean, I am eternally grateful for every single moment I suffered along that journey because I've made use of all of those moments. If I haven't made any use of those moments, then I am subject to the same habits and the same person and the same shame and all that. And that's painful. So it's about grabbing onto what you have and learning from it, right?
Hmm.
Like asking at every turn, what is this teaching me? Not what should I have already known. That's what perfectionism is. I should have already known this. I shouldn't have done that. It's like, no, what am I learning from all this?
Yeah, that's very true. And that's a good circle back to what we started this episode with, which is like, how do I have compassion essentially for my younger self who didn't know better? And now I feel humiliated in a way for being so weak and allowing myself to be so weak. But it's like, that's grist for the mill, baby.
It's all grist for the mill.
It's all grist for the mill.
Self-hatred's grist for the mill. Self-love
Yeah.
is grist for the mill. It all
Mm-hmm.
goes to the same place. We just need to keep learning, stay engaged, stay aware. That's
Mm-hmm.
why so much of the spiritual journey is about being aware. Because when we're not aware, we can't learn those lessons.
Yeah.
And when we keep operating under the same assumption that I should know everything and be perfect at everything, I don't learn and I don't grow and I
Mm-hmm.
continue to suffer. If I can say, I don't know at all what I'm getting into, and I'm going to learn, and every single step of this is just going to be a lesson, and I'm practicing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm practicing getting out of bed in the morning. I don't have to be perfect at it. There's so much grace there. And grace is the sign of a pleasant experience.
Yeah. Totally. It's like, you're going to learn so much more in class if you actually raise your hand and ask questions instead of being like, I'm not going to humiliate myself by being the one who doesn't know stuff, you know? You got to like make a fool of yourself to learn.
You gotta act a fool.
You got to act a fool. You got to fuck around and find out.
Just be willing to make a mistake. I mean, and again, it's just so much of this starts with how you treat others.
Mm-hmm.
The path to treating yourself better is through treating others better. Aldous Huxley, in the same breath, like, I mean, he, at the end of his kind of spiritual journey himself and in his later years, he said, like, one of the most embarrassing things is that the best piece of advice I can give to everybody after he's done all this self-exploration, he says, the best piece of advice I can give to anybody is to be a little bit kinder to one another. Because ultimately, that's what kindness is, that sign of compassion. And the kinder you are towards others, towards animals, towards people, towards things, the kinder you'll be to yourself. I mean, self-nurturing is also external. This is all just the mirror. As above, so below. As without, so within. If I can treat the person next to me a little more kindly, then I can treat myself a little more kindly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can't do it the other way. I can't try to be nicer to myself while being cruel to everybody else. It doesn't work that way. It always starts outward in. The less I judge others, the less I judge myself. If I practice that, I can practice this. I am practicing this. Because it's hard to change your internal monologue on your own because your internal monologue is running, whether you like it or not.
Oof.
So it has to be changed through actions outside of yourself.
Yeah. My internal monologue is Usain Bolt, man. It's just running so damn fast.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Extremely painful. Fast mind.
Exhausting.
I always thought a fast mind was a good thing.
No.
Yeah, everybody, I got so many plaudits for having a fast mind. And now I'm just suffering. I just sit there and I'm like, why are you going so fast? This is terrible.
Yeah. Me too. That's the perfect place for us to stop. Thank you so much for listening, you guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Yes. In the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at The Fall to Grace.
Just be a little kinder.
And be a little kinder.
We love you guys. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Talk to you soon.